If you want to know what type of client you are for IntensiveCareHotline.com, stay tuned. I've got news for you. My name is Patrick Hutzel from IntensiveCareHotline.com. And today I want to talk about what type of clients we actually have. And before you think this is just a sales pitch, please stay tuned. I've got lots to share that you will benefit from when you have a loved one critically ill in intensive care. So we have two types of clients here at IntensiveCareHotline.com. Let's start with the first type of client, which is the one that is proactive, right? That takes the bull by the horn, seeks advice, and gets results when they have a loved one critically ill in intensive care and gets care and treatment on their terms. And then we have another type of client who is scared, intimidated, who doesn't take the bull by the horn, but then contacts us weeks later, once they had a loved one critically ill in intensive care, and says, "Oh, my loved one died. Could she have been saved?" Right? So I'm going to ask you, which approach do you want to take? Do you want to take the proactive approach, or do you want to take the reactive approach and then ask, once your loved one has passed away, ask for a medical record review, which we can do, of course. But, the better approach here is really to do a medical record review while your loved one is critically ill in intensive care. And we can guide you and handhold you step by step, one day at the time. We can break things down for you, break it down to you in layman's terms so that you understand what's really happening when a loved one is critically ill in intensive care. Make recommendations, make sure you ask all the right questions. I talk to doctors and nurses directly and ask all the questions that you haven't even considered asking, but must be asked when you have a loved one critically ill in intensive care. The secret is to be one step ahead of the intensive care team so that you manage them and they don't manage you. Compare that, I had a phone call this week where a lady calls me up and she says, "Oh, I've been watching your website and I thought I was getting help, but then my dad passed away and then it was too late. Could he have been saved?" And she had very little insight of what really, when I asked her what was the situation, she had very little insight what was going on. And I said to her, "Look, the only way I can find out if your dad could have been saved, is if you give me access to the medical record so that me and my team can look at the information," right? So if you trust the intensive care team blindly, go for your life, but you will actually see that intensive care teams have their own agenda and their own agenda only, and that is not necessarily aligned with your critically ill loved one's best interest. They have interests such as needing to empty ICU beds, they have research interests, they have staffing conflicts, staffing interests, often don't have enough staff in ICU, right? Which means beds are becoming under pressure, right? So the bottom line is this, but we will identify all of that when we work with you one-on-one, just by, asking all the right questions to you and to intensive care teams, right? Compare that to doing a medical record review when it's too late, when your loved one has passed away. I mean, that is insanity rather than, doing it proactively when you have a loved one critically ill in intensive care, right? But I can't tell you how many clients ring up and they want a medical record review, because they didn't see the warning signs. They believed intensive care teams blindly, and they didn't know that they have a choice. They didn't know that you can actually manage intensive care teams so they don't manage. Because if you start managing them, everything will change. If you take our advice, everything will change. If you let us look at medical records while your loved one is in intensive care, everything will change. If you let me talk to doctors and nurses directly, everything will change, because the doctors then know you have someone on your team who understands intensive care inside out just as they do, and you need that. You absolutely need that. Otherwise, you'll be fighting an uphill battle, and and then you'll be coming and wanting a medical record review after intensive care when it's too late. You also need to understand that approximately 90% of intensive care patients survive. That's 9 out of 10 patients surviving. So why should your loved one be just the 1% that's not surviving? The odds are in your loved one's favor if you know how to manage it, if you know how to advocate. That is exactly what we are doing here at IntensiveCareHotline.com. I have worked in critical care nursing for 25 years in 3 different countries. where I worked as a nurse manager for over 5 years. And I've been consulting and advocating for families in intensive care since 2013 here at intensivecare.com. And I can very confidently say that we have saved many lives for our clients in intensive care. And you can verify that if you go to our testimonial section at intensivecare.com, or if you go to our intensivecare.com podcast section, where we have done client interviews. Because our advice is absolutely life-changing. Absolutely life-changing. And again, I ask you, which client do you want to be? Do you want to be the client that's proactive, saving your loved one's life, making sure they get best care and treatment always? Or do you want to be the one crying because you didn't take action and then your loved one might pass away and then you're asking for a medical record review when it's too late? Ask for the medical record review while your loved one is in intensive care, critically ill, so you can course correct, right? And you can join a growing number of members and clients to improve their lives instantly and to improve your life instantly. Have peace of mind, control, power, and influence, making sure your loved one gets best care and treatment always. And that is no exaggeration. That is what happens once you have an advocate and consultant by your side. And that's why I do one-on-one consulting and advocacy over the phone, Zoom, Skype, WhatsApp, whichever medium works best for you. And I talk to you and your families directly. I handhold you through this once-in-a-lifetime situation that you simply cannot afford to get wrong. And I also talk to you and your families directly. And I talk to doctors and nurses directly. And when I talk to doctors and nurses directly, I ask all the questions that you haven't even considered asking, but must be asked when you have a loved one critically ill in intensive care. I also represent you in family meetings with intensive care teams. We also do medical record reviews in real time so that you can get a second opinion in real time. We also do medical record reviews after intensive care if you have unanswered questions, if you need closure, or if you are suspecting medical negligence. And we also have a membership for families of critically ill patients in intensive care, and you can become a member if you go to intensivecare.com. If you click on the membership link, or if you go to intensivcaresupport.org directly, in the membership you have access to me and my team 24 hours a day in a membership area and via email, and we answer all questions intensive care related. In the membership, you also have get access to 21 ebooks and 21 videos that I've personally written and recorded, and all of that will help you to make informed decisions, have peace of mind, control, power, and influence. And all of that you get at intensivecare.com. Call us on one of the numbers on the top of our website, or simply send us an email to support@intensivecare.com with your questions. And if you like my videos, subscribe to my YouTube channel for regular updates for families in intensive care. Like, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell, and share the video with your friends and families. I also do a weekly YouTube live where I answer your questions live on a show, and you will get notification for the YouTube live if you are a subscriber to my YouTube channel, or if you are a subscriber to my intensivecare.com email newsletter at intensivecare.com. Thank you so much for watching. This is Patrick Hutzel from intensivecare.com, and I will talk to you in a few days. Take care.